Once upon a time, deep within a big green jungle, there lived a sly and cunning fox and his neighbor, a stork. They lived close to each other and saw each other often. The fox was notorious for his cunning ways and would often trick other animals for his own benefit. The stork, on the other hand, was known for his honesty and kindness. Despite their differences, they were neighbors and did their best to maintain a good relationship. One day, the fox decided to invite his neighbor, the stork, over for dinner at his house. He had prepared one of his famous delicious meals and could unwait to share it with the stork. To be honest, the fox had never invited the stork over before, and the stork was surprised by the sudden invitation. But he was also curious about what the fox had cooked and happily accepted the invitation. That evening, as the sun began to set, the stork set off towards the fox's house and walked down the path, his long legs carrying him swiftly, and soon he was at the fox's doorstep. The stork knocked on the door with his long beak, and after a few moments, the fox opened the door. He had a big smile on his face and welcomed the stork inside. As the stork entered the house, he noticed how cozy it was. The fire crackled in the hearth, casting a warm glow around the room, and the walls were adorned with hunting trophies from the fox's adventures. The fox led the stork into the dining room, where a beautifully set table awaited them. There were plates and silverware, and the centerpiece was a large pot filled with a delicious soup. It smelled so good that the stork's stomach rumbled with hunger. "Please, take a seat," said the fox, gesturing towards a chair. "Dinner will be ready in just a moment." The stork sat down, and while he waited, he couldn't help but admire the fox's hospitality. He had never spent this much time in the fox's house before, and he was impressed by how comfortable it was. A few minutes passed, and then the fox returned with the soup. He ladled some into a bowl and placed it in front of the stork. The stork looked at the bowl and couldn't believe what he saw. It was shallow and small, and there wasn't much soup in it. To make matters worse, the sides of the bowl were so high that the stork's long beak could not reach the soup. No matter how hard he tried, he could not get his beak into the bowl. The stork looked at the fox, and he saw a mischievous grin on the fox's face. It was clear that the fox had done this on purpose. The stork felt humiliated and angry, but he didn't want to cause a scene, so he smiled politely and pushed the bowl away. "Thank you for the meal," he said, "but I'm not feeling very hungry right now. Perhaps I'll eat something later." The fox nodded, still grinning, and he took the bowl back. He ate the rest of the soup with relish, enjoying every last drop. Then he looked at the stork and said, "Well, that was a lovely dinner. Thank you for coming, old friend. I hope you enjoyed the meal." The stork stood up, his feathers ruffled. He couldn't believe how the fox had treated him. He wanted to say something, but he didn't want to start an argument, so he simply replied, "It was a pleasure to be here, my dear fox," and he left without another word. Once outside, the stork couldn't hold back anymore. He let out a loud squawk, expressing all the anger and humiliation he had felt during the dinner. He shook his head in disbelief. He couldn't understand why the fox would treat him this way. He had always been kind to the fox and never caused any trouble. Determined to teach the fox a lesson, the stork decided to invite the fox over for dinner the following week. He sent a message to the fox, inviting him to come for a meal on Saturday evening. The fox, of course, accepted the invitation, and on Saturday evening, he arrived at the stork's house. When the fox reached the stork's house, he could smell something delicious cooking inside. It smelled like roasted meat and herbs, and the aroma made his mouth water. He thought to himself, "The stork may be honest and kind, but he's not as clever as I am. Won't fall for any tricks he might try to play." Still, he couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation for the meal that awaited him. As the stork opened the door, he greeted the fox with a warm smile. "Welcome, my friend," he said. Come in. Dinner will be ready soon." The fox stepped inside, and the first thing he noticed was that the house was filled with the wonderful aroma of cooking food. The stork's wife had been busy in the kitchen all morning, preparing a special meal for the guests. They entered the dining room, where a large table was set with a white tablecloth and silverware. At the center of the table, there were 2 large tall jars filled with a hearty stew. It looked delicious, and the fox couldn't wait to dig in. "Please, my dear fox, have a seat," said the stork, gesturing towards a chair. "I hope you're hungry. I've made one of my wife's famous stews. It's made with tender pieces of chicken, fresh vegetables, and a rich gravy. I think you'll love it." The fox sat down, and he couldn't help but admire the interior of the stork's house. It was spacious and well decorated, and the walls were adorned with beautiful paintings. The stork's wife had a lovely sense of style, and the whole place felt warm and inviting. While the fox was admiring the surroundings, the stork went to the kitchen to get the stew. He came back with 2 spoons and offered one to the fox. "Here you go," he said. "Try some of this. It's absolutely delicious." The fox reached out and grabbed the spoon. As soon as he put it in his mouth, he knew that the stork had played a trick on him. The stew was too thick and heavy, and the fox's mouth got stuck in the neck of the spoon. He struggled to free himself, but the more he struggled, the deeper the spoon went into his mouth. The fox panicked. He tried to speak, but all that came out was a muffled squeak. The stork watched with amusement as the fox struggled to free himself. He could see the panic in the fox's eyes, and it was clear that the fox was in trouble. The stork didn't want to be cruel, so he reached out and helped the fox pull the spoon out of his mouth. The fox stumbled out of the dining room, his fur ruffled, and his eyes wide with surprise. He looked at the stork and tried to speak, but his voice was hoarse from the struggle. Finally, he managed to say that wasn't very nice of you, Stork. The stork couldn't help but laugh. He had been waiting for the perfect opportunity to get back at the fox, and this was it. "Oh, come on, Fox," he said. "Don't be such a sore loser. You started it when you served me that tiny bowl. You could have easily shared your food with me, but you chose not to. You merely retaliated. Besides, it was quite entertaining, wasn't it?" The fox blushed with shame, realized that he had been outfoxed. Literally, the tables had turned, and he had gotten a taste of his own medicine. He had thought he was so clever, but the stork had outsmarted him. The fox nodded slowly. He knew that he had been outfoxed, and he had to admit defeat. "You got me, Stork," he said. "I guess I got what was coming to me. I deserved that trick." Stork smiled. "Well, that's the spirit," he said. "We all make mistakes, and it's important to admit them. Now, how about you tell me what it was like to have your mouth stuck in my spoon?" The fox couldn't help but smile back. He had to admit that it had been a humiliating experience, but it was also kind of funny. He looked at the stork and said, "You got me good, old friend. Let's call it even. And maybe next time, we'll be a little nicer to each other." The stork nodded. "Agreed," he said. "Now, how about some more stew? I think there's enough to share." The fox happily agreed. And together, they enjoyed the rest of the stork's delicious stew, laughing and talking like old friends. And so, the stork and the fox became friends again, each learning a valuable lesson about kindness and understanding. The memory of that night became a local legend in the jungle, a reminder for all the animals that it's always better to be kind and fair to others.